Greetings, Celeste Cuffey here of Life Empowered Consulting Services, where our mission is to reach, empower, and motivate others to access and utilize their inherent, their natural, their God-given talents and skills, building better families, companies, and communities worldwide. Thank you so much for joining me on today. We are in part 2 of the Career Planning and Preparation Workshop. I'm so glad to be here with you on today. Hopefully you all have gotten a chance to listen to the career planning part 1 of this 3-part series. I hope you found it inspirational as well as informational as well as insightful. And I hope that the information that you have learned so far is information that you can do something with and you will begin to implement right away as you are choosing the next path of your career. So this is part 2 of the 3-part series. In this particular section, we will be focused on resume writing. So we're going to do an introduction of myself. We're going to talk about the types of resumes, the parts of resumes, and then I will also be offering you some resume writing tips. So if you have not already done so, go ahead and grab a piece of paper and a pen, and let's get ready to dive down. Now, as you are preparing to grab that pen and paper so that we can get started, just a little bit about myself. I am the owner and proprietor of Life Empowered Consulting Services, and we are excited to bring this programming to you today. This particular programming is especially important and special to me because of the simple fact that I started Life Empowered because I lost my job. And when I lost my job through layoffs, the business was born. And not only was it born, but it was born through teaching others how to write resumes, how to prepare for their job interviews, and also helping them with career planning. So again, this is particularly special for me. The other thing that I want to highlight is the fact that it was during that time that I wrote my first book, Looking Back Then Moving Forward. If you've not purchased your copy today, I do encourage you to do so. I would actually encourage you to get all of the books, but specifically Looking Back Then Moving Forward. It helps you navigate where you are, where you want to be, and how to get there. And so that book really talks about 3 main premises, which is learning life's lessons, applying what you've learned, and then sharing it with others. Plain and simple. And that's again how this got started, because I was on a job search. And so in that searching, on that journey, I um, I learned so much and I just wanted to offer it. And so let's go ahead and get started. The very first thing I want you to know is that a resume is not just a resume. This is your life's work on paper. This is your process of growth, experiences, passion, the things that you are interested in developing in, as well as the things that you've already developed and your successes. This piece of paper, this resume, should reflect just that. But did you know this? Did you know that recruiters spend an average of 6 to 8 seconds looking at a resume? The hiring managers spend 15 to 30 seconds. I'm sure you're familiar with resume software that pre-screens and weeds out the resumes. So many resumes don't even get to the eyes of a human being. And that's why it's important that we look at what we're presenting and prepare it in such a way that it does get that second set of eyes beyond ours. And sometimes even a third set of eyes. I am very happy to look at your resumes for critique. Share them with someone else that you know that can look at your resume and critique it. What do I need to add to it? And so before we drill down into the resumes, let's look at the entire tool set that's needed. Cover letter, applications, resume, references, and the thank you letter. You should always have a cover letter. Applications are typically online, so when you go to websites, you see a job that you're interested in, you of course go and fill out the application. And then once you fill out the application, they ask you to attach your resume. Now, I will say that more often than not, recently, I have seen where um, when you attach your resume, it automatically pre-fills a tool, and that has been a great time saver. However, you have to always double check the tool. And then also, of course, have references on hand, and also make sure you say thank you, because it's always just nice to be nice. Now, within this set of tools that you need in order to effectively and successfully apply for positions, there are three types of resumes that you also have: the chronological, the functional, as well as the targeted resume. Now, when you think of the chronological resume, that is the one that the positions are generally listed in the order, typically from the most recent to the furthest back. Usually they tell you to keep your resume at about 10 years. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. Functional, which is the focus on your skills and your experiences, which typically has your job functions front and center. And then after that, the locations in which you worked are listed. So it's not together from a chronological perspective. Then there is the targeted, meaning this one is customized to highlight your skills and experiences that are relevant to that particular position. Now, this is the one that I um, am in favor of, and we'll tell you why in just a moment as well. And then there's the combination. So this is traditionally the way that these types of resumes look. When we have the chronological, you have your contact information at the top. So the first boxes across the top are pretty much the same. The objectives are pretty much the same across the top. The professional profile is pretty much the same across the top. Where it gets a little different is that next or that fourth box below, where you have the professional experience, the technical or the professional experience summary. These next two boxes after that, they tend to get a little mixed depending on the type of resume that you're using. So again, the first thing that I mentioned before was the fact that I do not subscribe to just 10 years. Why? Because if you are a little bit older, a little bit further down in your career, you may have something that happened 15 years ago or some experiences 15 years ago that have helped get you to where you are today, and you want that visible. So that is why I do not necessarily subscribe. Now, I will say though that when I think about the functional resume, where you're going to list the things that you are really technically strong in, that is where I would suggest that you put that. Meaning that if you have something 25 years ago, for example, that you've been fabulous in and it was critical to your success and you want it acknowledged, consider doing a functional resume in which all of your skills and your experiences are front and center. Then the dates and the times when, or the dates and the locations of when you did it would be kind of on that subsequent, I would say like the second page of your resume. So that way your skills are what's being highlighted. And that is what really the functional and technical resume is. And then there is the targeted resume, which means that you maybe have 3 or 4 different resumes depending on the type of job that you want. Meaning, for example, if you wanted to work in a project management space versus program management space versus HR space, you may have different resumes highlighting your skills for each of those spaces. And that's really what a targeted resume is. Now, I'd like to take that a step further, and I have some examples later in here as well that you'll see. But I'd also like to just highlight that whenever you are doing applying for positions, you need to modify at some level your resume, putting in verbiage that does align with um, that particular position, because each organization, they traditionally have their own language. And so in order for your resume to stand out and to hopefully get a second set of or a set of human eyes, you have to have those keywords jump out from the tool. So that is why I wanted to just make sure I mentioned that in terms of kind of targeted, but it really, for each particular position you apply for, you really have to have some level of targeted, customized information by position. Now, these are the parts of the resume that I'd like for you to just make sure that you have. So think about your resume, think about what you have on it, and do you have this information? What's missing? And if there's nothing missing, great. But if there is something missing, definitely do something about it. And you may have to shorten it, figure out ways to reword it. Resume writing is an art form. It really is. And so it's important, though, to make sure that your resume has all of these things. Now, these are resume samples, the functional and the chronological. The chronological is to the right here, and this is where you have the date, the company, and it doesn't have to be in this exact format, but notice that when you have the chronological, you have the dates and the company kind of front and center. However, when you have a functional, you just have the area of accomplishment. What did you do? And then you have the dates of the employment below it. Now, what's also interesting about the functional resume that you should be aware of is that you have all of your skills, you have all of your accomplishments, but when you've worked 25 years and um, what you're talking about is maybe in something very early in your career, once they see your employment history, they don't know where it happened at, but just that it happened. And the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter where. It just matters that it does. It matters that you're able to build on that and grow. And so, rather you do the chronological or the functional resume, it's important that they can see your progressiveness and your growth as a potential candidate for that position. Now, when we look at resumes, I talked about customizing your resumes based on the position that you're applying for, right? I talked about it at a bit of a macro level, meaning the targeted. If you're a project manager, you want to work in IT versus you want to work in human resources. However, not only that, but you have to also customize it in terms of what they're seeing. Remember, they're only looking at your resume for about 6 to 8 seconds, 30 seconds. And so every, every, every activity, every sentence, every bullet point, and I am a huge proponent for bullet points. It should start with a action word. So here is a list of action words that you can make sure you have somewhere in your resume. If it's research, there are some terms for you. If it's creative, there are some terms for you. If it's financial, there are some terms for you. Each bullet point, each skill, each activity, each success should start with a action word. And you know why? Because that demonstrates your leadership. It demonstrates what you've done. And it's absolutely critical that you are able to articulate that. Because again, this piece of paper is reflecting who you are. Here are a few more action words for you. Please, 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 please use this tool as a guide to help you craft your resume. Remember I said take a look at your resume? If none of your bullet points start with these types of words, then you need to start over. You need to do something different. If your resume doesn't demonstrate your role, your role in helping that department, that team become successful with action and activity, then we have to take a different look at it. And remember, I am here for you. You can definitely reach out to me. I would love to support you in this endeavor. But again, take a look at your resume, assess it, see where you are, and then let's figure out where we can make some adjustments at. And so here are some resume writing tips. The first one is just understand the position you're applying for. What are you applying for? Support your strengths and your qualities. Keep a running job history. If somebody would have told me that 20 years ago, I think my life would be a lot different. Do you know how tough it is to think about who was my supervisor when I had three of them in one, in one role because they were changing so quickly? If someone would have told me to keep a history of that kind of information, boy, that stress level would have been way down for me. Use action words. Use keywords. Keywords are the words that are specific to the organization. Action words are what you're starting your bullet points out with. A lot of people write their resumes in summary, paragraph style. I've seen that. Don't do that. Use clear, concise bullet points. They're not looking at your resume long enough to read through everything to get to, did she do this? Did he do that? Just keep it simple. Proofread, proofread with your eyes, proofread with your mouth, and then read backwards. Make sure the sentence makes sense. And this goes without saying, make sure what you're putting down is accurate, but proofread. Use effective titles. And again, I've said it several times already, use bullet points. So that was the information that I had for you around career planning. Was part one around resume writing, which is this particular section. I thank you so much for joining. As you can see below, there is my email as well as my website. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out, email me, go to my website for more information. Thank you again for your time, and remember to live life empowered. Take care. Goodbye.